Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, joined this week by Patrick Castles and Entertainment Weekly's Darren Franich.
How are you? Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Now, this is an exciting episode. The three of us were together about a year ago, maybe a little less, to talk about the last season of Breaking Bad. And Darren, as I recall, this is what I really remember about that, correctly predicted the final twist of the season.
That was amazing.
So we're here, we're going to talk about Breaking Bad. Obviously, it's going to get really spoilery. But before that, I was thinking...
We really razzed. We said you're an idiot. There's no way that's right.
There was no belief in me and my abilities to guess what was going to happen. And
Well, it was-
I was very happy. I was very happy to be validated eventually.
Well, it was kind of a crazy theory, like involving right down to the plant and stuff like that. And
Well, hold on, because we were thinking before we talk about Breaking Bad, let's warm up by talking about the Expendables 2.
Which really the same project, I would argue.
Very
in some
similar.
ways.
Well,
Tackle
we
a lot of
said
the
we
same
wanted to do it.
themes.
We talked about the two most important things happening in culture right now.
So what we're going to do is talk about the Expendables 2, maybe 5-10 minutes. I'll put the time that we start talking about Breaking
That's
Bad.
barely a minute per Expendable, Jeff.
We need at least 10 minutes to talk about Dolph Lundgren's comic reaction shots, man. I mean, who knew that guy was the comic actor of his generation?
And he's a genius.
I'm going to put the time that we start talking about Breaking Bad in the info for the MP3, so you can skip right to that part if you want, because we'll probably talk about...
Skip right to the 1 hour and 30 minute mark now, gang.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
we're
funny
gonna
that, like,
dive right into this.
We don't know
movie.
how long we're going to... I'm like, 5 or 10 minutes, but people looking at the info already know how wrong. We don't know yet. We don't know how long we're going to go, but they
we'll
already
try.
know.
We'll do our best.
And,
Let's just riff on it, man. The same way they wrote Expendables 2. Let's just see where this rolls.
I mean, I think we have to be spoilery about Expendables 2, but I would say, and I'm a little anal about spoilers, I don't think there's any element of Expendables 2 that could really be
There's
spoiled
one.
except for specific
There's
jokes,
one major
specific
element.
beats.
Should we just dive right into that?
Okay, so we are about to talk about Expendables 2. Check the info if you want to skip right to the Breaking Bad, which will also be spoilery up through the finale.
This is like, I love this podcast. It's such a labor of love for you. There's just so much what you want to talk about. It's like, you don't want to hear this. Like, you need to put instructions for skipping the
I
parts.
just want to give them the option
I know.
because I feel bad luring people into the Breaking Bad thing and then they turn it on and we're like, Van Damme's the coolest. So there is one kind of spoiler, and it's
Like if someone jumped in and they were just talking about that part when Dolph Lundgren slits the guy's throat, someone's like, what the fuck is happening on Breaking
This
Bad
Breaking
this
Bad
season?
season finale is getting crazy, man.
So the one thing that is kind of spoilery in the movie, and it happens like a third of the way into the movie, is what's his name? Liam Hemsworth.
Hemsworth,
It's
yes.
Liam Hemsworth. Gets killed via Jean-Claude Van Damme kicking a dagger. Well, before we get into Van Damme kicking a dagger into his heart, which was
Right.
one of the best parts of the movie.
Definitely.
Maybe one of the best death scenes of the summer. I want to throw that
Wow,
out there.
that is probably true. I mean, what did you guys think of the movie?
I really loved it. I did not like the first movie. I found it so depressing, and I went into this for work just thinking it was going to be just awful. And I think they turned up the self-awareness level just enough that it didn't feel depressing to me to see all these 65-year-old dudes pretending to be 25-year-old Navy SEALs. Something about it felt a little bit lighter, I guess.
I'm the opposite. I love the Expendables 1. I think it's great. I thought this one was not so good. I thought it was pretty mediocre. Pat, round us out here.
I think I'm somewhere.
Who's right?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Oh, sorry. Well, I think I agree. I do. I think in a lot of ways, like Van Damme's kicking a dagger into a dude's heart, it totally succeeds as an action movie, independently. The parts I didn't like were how it kind of cranked up the self-awareness to the point that I found, and I think Schwarzenegger's in the movie, and I think literally 80% of his lines are just tongue-in-cheek references to the Terminator or something.
Well, and did you guys like how seeing Schwarzenegger, Willis, and Stallone all together, you really realize that Schwarzenegger is not even close to being a good actor anymore?
Schwarzenegger, this is what I've been thinking about since I saw the movie, is by far the worst actor in the Expendables, and that is saying something. These people are not famous because they won Oscars, with the exception of Stallone, I guess.
He's barely capable of talking in the movie. This guy was the governor of my state not that long ago, and I am just horrified by his inability to deliver any line without cracking up.
That's the incredible thing about it, is he is the worst actor, and yet, by an order of magnitude, the most successful. Not only in film, but He's one of the most recognized celebrities ever, one of the most iconic movie stars of all time, and he is such a bad actor. And I guess the thing is, he used to be big and strong, but like he kind of isn't so much. I mean, he's obviously still a big dude.
He was barely in the first one, and in this one he's way more. I think he was so successful, like his life had to completely fall apart before he agreed to be in the Expendables.
And now he's in that other Stallone movie coming up too, where he's there in the prison trying to escape. I'm blanking on the name of it.
I don't know. I only saw the preview for
Bullet in the Head.
No, I saw the preview for Before Expendables 2: Last Stand, which is his next movie, which is so funny. Go look up that trailer. Because there is a scene where Schwarzenegger walks in and he just says,
Well, it's my day off. Should be a quiet weekend.
Whenever he tries to sound normal, like, oh, I'm just a normal guy. I got nothing planned this weekend. Like, he can't do it
at all. It's even better because in the movie, he's playing this sort of small-town sheriff.
Yeah.
What world exists where this huge Austrian 65-year-old man is a small-town sheriff in California?
So
I thought the best performance in the movie was Van Damme.
I agree.
I was blown away.
I agree.
Van Damme was really selling it, wasn't he?
Well, he was the villain, so he had a little more to do. The villain, both his role in the movie and also the name of his character was Jean Villain.
Jean Villain.
I think for these guys, like none of them want to be the villain. They're all like such alpha males that like I don't think Schwarzenegger would have done this movie if they'd made him the villain.
Has he ever played a villain?
Schwarzenegger
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that the only time? And he was like, "Oh, that didn't work because I was the villain."
I have this theory
he
that
play the Terminator
that his
too.
character in Twins has this hidden life where he murders children, but that's.
So
I want to hear more about that theory later on.
My problem with the movie, kind of talking about Schwarzenegger, is like the climax of the movie doesn't involve any of the people who are actually in the movie. Because the climax is where they get the big people in. Bruce Willis is shooting guns, Schwarzenegger shooting guns, Chuck Norris comes back. Chuck Norris is in the movie for like less than 4 minutes total.
His presence had made no sense whatsoever.
So, but none of those people are actually in the movie. Like they have a brief cameo and they all come back. But the actual Expendables, Randy Couture, Terry Crews, they're not involved at all. And I understand why they did it, but just as a movie, it made it very unsatisfying.
I believe Jet Li, arguably like the most talented fighter out of all of them, except maybe Van Damme.
Or Randy Couture, right? Is that how you say his name?
I have no idea.
But
yeah, I guess different disciplines.
That guy's in 2 Expendables movies. He does nothing in either of them.
It's always funny.
But
like,
Jet Li jumps out of a plane 10 minutes in the movie, never to be seen again.
Yeah. By the way, jumps out of a plane over China. Like it's just like, okay, well you go back home, and then we'll go back to America now, and maybe we'll meet up later.
That's
but
my thing with
not.
the Expendables is I feel like it was written around the availability of the people in it.
Well, but here's my thing is that's actually part of the reason why I think I liked this movie more. There was something so unabashed and even hucksterist about it. Literally just like, hey, Chuck Norris, are you free to shoot a scene? We'll put you on the poster. You'll feature prominently in the trailer. All you have to do, like, don't even really fire a gun. Just kind of walk in and look cool. You don't have to raise your hand up over your head because you're a 75-year-old man. There's something very charming about that for me.
What I liked about the first one is that it seemed like it was trying to be a good action movie first, and then like just a sort of like lineup of these 80s guys second. Like, you know, and that's why I think the genius is like it not just being 80s action stars, because that would have been a fun thing. But like he's like, no, I'm putting Jason Statham and Randy Couture and Terry Crews, because I think in Sylvester Stallone's brain, he's like, oh yeah, we're all physical equals. And like, that's adorable.
There is something really funny like very early in the movie, the first time that Schwarzenegger walks on screen, where he's talking to Terry Crews as if they're equals, and it's just like Terry Crews is a monster of a man who could easily tear your head off. Old Governor Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Like,
there was one moment in the movie that I thought was kind of interesting, where like they're like, they're all like they're moving through like some Eastern European country to find this nuclear thing, and
plot.
and like they're like Stallone asks Liam Hemsworth to like run ahead and scout, and he bolts up a hill, and then they look at two of the old guys look at each other and like, remember when you could do that? And like it was kind of interesting because it was a little deeper than just like, I'm too old for this shit. It was like, no, we just physically can't run up hills anymore. And I'm like, wow, you really admitted it.
But this to me is the best thing about the whole Expendables franchise, is that, you know, when I first heard about it, I kind of thought, oh, this is great. It's Stallone doing his action thing again. It's very surreal to watch Sylvester Stallone try to be physical on screen now. I mean, this is a guy who's as old as my dad, and I have a pretty old dad, and he's like showing off his biceps. There's that one great shot right at the start of the Van Damme fight, which, by the way, is shrouded entirely in shadow.
Yeah.
So as to make make the stunt double's like appearance that much simpler. Where there's that close up on Stallone's like biceps just glistening, like clearly they called in the
Right.
makeup crew to pour a lot of roast butter on there. Like it's just such a surreal experience watching the movie. But as a film fan, I think it's weirdly fun too. You know,
Stallone has fared the best at in like reviving all his old, his old accomplishments. He had the in the Rocky Balboa movie. I feel like that might have done well. I know the Rambo, the Rambo 4 I thought was very good. And I feel like maybe there's another Rambo on the docket, and then the Expendables.
The question is, do you think Stallone is aware of what he's doing? Like, do you think that he kind of means these to be sort of tongue in cheek, or do you think to him this is just all on the same continuum as the Rocky and Rambo movies back in the 80s?
I think he does know. I think he's aware of it.
I think he knows. I think he's probably smarter than we give him credit for.
I agree.
I would criticize Expendables 2 with the same thing I said about the Pee Wee Herman show on Broadway. Unlikely enough.
Not enough Terry Crews.
So we saw Pee Wee Herman on Broadway when he did his Pee Wee's Playhouse show on Broadway, and it was good, but I was a little disappointed because I'm a lifelong Pee Wee fan, and I was hoping that the show would be good and new. Something that would, if you've never seen Pee Wee before, you could love, and like it would explain why I've been into this weirdo my whole life. And the show was good and it was funny, but it relies really heavily on all the stuff that came before it. It relies really heavily on nostalgia, and I loved it. I don't know that I've ever done this before since I literally threw up my arms in joy when they revealed the Playhouse set, like a completely legitimate reaction. But it wasn't good. It's not like Pee-wee's Big Adventure where you can show it to someone and be like, see, this is what it's about. And it just traded too heavily on that nostalgia.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, to me, it almost has this feeling of when TV shows used to do reunions, and the only reason to watch it was pure nostalgia factor. Like, you knew that, like, the plot wasn't going to be particularly interesting, nor was it really going to, like, conclude the storyline in any way. Like, I love the fact that they're called the Expendables, and none of them ever seem to die besides Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I feel like with Futurama, the movies, which are, I guess, count as seasons. A lot of people didn't really like those. I didn't like them. I mean, I didn't think they were as strong as the original episodes. I think that's because they kind of served as like, let's bring all these elements we've created together. And then I think the new season on Comedy Central are better than the DVD movies.
I absolutely agree. I mean, let me throw this your guys' way. Maybe part of the reason why I enjoyed the Expendables 2 more than I was expecting is that, weirdly to me, I felt like in many ways it was almost a mirror image of the first big movie of this summer, The Avengers, which is another movie which in a very different way plays hugely off of stuff that's come before. As someone who grew up reading comic books, I definitely had a hands in the air with glee moment when like Thanos was revealed at the end. But I will say that like, in both cases, I sort of walk out of them being like, I loved that movie a lot. I don't think, like, I mean, if you didn't know about these characters before, or if you didn't like care about superheroes, why would you care about this movie?
I think as someone who's probably not as big of a comic book fan as other people in this room, maybe.
Other nerds in this room.
The reason I think, for me, that movie was very enjoyable because just the action set pieces were so objectively good.
We're talking about Avengers?
Yeah, and I think that's what the Expendables kind of was too.
I think Avengers, there's a lot of people that liked the Avengers that were not familiar with the mythos of Thor, that didn't even see the Thor movie, much less like read the Walt Simonson comic books. Whereas Expendables, it's really hard to imagine someone who doesn't know who any of these actors are. I guess this person is like younger than the age of 20 or something, and enjoying it anyway.
Statham, man. big Statham.
Not a lot of
fans.
Statham got a lot more play in the first Expendables, and I like Statham.
Yeah, and also Jeff has a. I'm sure we talked about this on the podcast before.
I think we did.
Always every single summer there is one late August Jason Statham movie, and I guess this technically
this is it.
He actually has a great schedule because it's always late August and then January. His January movie, you know, it's like The Mechanic or The Killer Elite or just this movie that seemed to be made in like 5 weeks in some corner of London.
Although I did like the first Expendables a lot because I think just as an action movie I think it worked better. But I do have like a soft spot for these movies. I think one reason I like these movies beyond the cast or whatever they are is just like I just have like a soft spot for like tight 90-minute action movies. I think those are like very rare these days. Also, a reason I think the movie Jeff and I just saw, wound up being one of my favorite movies of the summer, Premium Rush, which is like the
I haven't
Joseph
seen
Gordon-Levitt
that yet.
It's
like
good.
messenger
Premium Rush is good.
caper.
It's funny because that's a movie that probably for a year and a half now I've been making fun of in principle because it just sounds so goofy. This
Totally.
notion of it's a bike
Yeah.
messenger movie, but I love the fact that now it's come out and everyone's like, yeah, it's a bike messenger movie and it's pretty awesome.
Well,
is it just like a fun like is it all chases all the time?
It's just
or is it,
good
like-
and
Yes.
fun. And like, I read the Ebert review of it, and he's like, it's like old and it's cliche, but any formula can be good if you bring enough enthusiasm and new ideas to it. And I think that's what it did. It's like, it's totally cartoonish. You definitely know it's like a bike messenger who has a magic envelope that everyone wants. It's not actually magic, but it might as well be.
It's also like, I think Bike Messenger, I give credit to the screenwriter who, like, he must have seen a Bike Messenger, like, ride by him, and he's like, it's a group of cool, hip, young people who ride fast vehicles. Like, that's, you can totally... And the movie kind of reminded me a lot of, like, those 80s movies, like Gleaming the Cube and, like, Rad, where they would just, like, find, like, BMXs are a thing, or skateboarding's a thing, or laser tag's a thing, and then, like, write a movie around that. And,
Well, and to me it's interesting too because it sort of feels like both that movie and Expendables 2, in a way they're very unabashed action movies. I sort of feel like a lot of big blockbusters that Hollywood makes today are action movies, but they kind of feel the need to layer in a lot of things that don't necessarily belong there, or they're just poorly shot action
Yeah.
movies. I mean, for me, like the new Spider-Man movie, I just couldn't even really handle
Yeah, I
because
don't
it's.
like that movie
I mean, it was so swamped in like
Yeah.
melancholy and stuff, and there's something very pleasant about a simple, straightforward action movie that
It's-
knows exactly what it wants to do.
It's
and
funny because
delivers
I
it.
agree with you, and that's why I think I like Premium Rush so much. But I also have a separate soft spot for like when genre movies are really desperate to like add like a layer of like political. Like I was like reading, I was watching the Expendables, like hoping to find some kind of like. Theme
Definitely
in it.
not.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
like nothing to that movie.
I like read a bunch of New York Times like newspapers in prep. Kind of A, just because that's what I do after I see a movie, and B, for this, and like no one gave a review longer than like a paragraph.
Yeah.
What if you said it was like I mean they were trying to get plutonium in Eastern Europe?
Didn't
Like,
matter.
what?
Good.
What
The reviews were
fantasy
the reviews
world?
are positive in a very like sort of like it's good, but
Can I turn you? Let me write down the time. Can I turn you towards everyone? Because when you turn away from
Sure.
the mic,
Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's like new room. Can I do that though?
Sure.
Because it sounds great, but when you turn away from the mic, I lose you a little. So that's 18:05. Sorry.
I've been lazing back, having so much fun over here, man.
Yeah, yeah.
This is work. Sorry.
I like the scene where Chuck Norris. There's a scene in the movie when Chuck Norris shows up. It's the only scene he's in until the end. And there's a Chuck Norris joke in the movie where like they reference Chuck Norris facts. There's a lot of like winky references in the movie, but that one stood out to me because it's like this one internet meme joke in the center of this thing that like about things that no one's thought, people and things no one's thought about in 20 or 30 years, and right at the very core of it, there's like this one like shiny little internet joke.
yeah, that would but it's like Chuck Norris jokes are kind of old at this point. Like,
Yeah,
that's
true.
the sad thing about that. But I mean, in a sense, that's what makes it even funnier is that Chuck Norris is finally tapping into that Chuck Norris fever that everyone had 5 years ago. I mean, even the one internet reference feels so out of date.
He's so old. I didn't realize he looks better than. I mean, he doesn't really do anything in the movie except shoot guns. But he's like 70 something. He doesn't look 70 something.
Let's talk about who looks the worst in the movie
Oh,
because
good question.
I'm going to say
Probably
that
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger looks bad.
Sorry, Schwarzenegger.
But
He's had the least
Oh
incentive.
shit, he's outside the door, guys. No.
The thing is though that he looks bad in a way that looks realistically old. There's some times when Stallone was talking and all that was coming out were the kind of mothballs like whoa. I was like that is a man whose body is insane.
Well, this actually, maybe we can use this transition to Breaking Bad, because I believe on your Twitter you asked recently, who do you think is older? This was you, right? Mm-hmm. Mike from Breaking Bad or Sylvester Stallone? What do you think the answer is, Pat?
I think I would say, oh God, Mike from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, you can kind of tell because it's like a trick. You know,
No,
like the
no,
fact
I
that
wasn't sure,
The fact that
actually.
we're
I
bringing
really-
it up. Stallone is 1 year older, according to Darren. I haven't independently verified this.
According to IMDb, Sylvester Stallone is 1 year older than Mike, who plays, the oldest man in the universe
Mike
on Breaking
Ehrmantraut.
Bad. Yeah, Mike Ehrmantraut. Oh, Mike Ehrmantraut.
Mike should be in the
Oh
Expendables
yeah,
3.
what a way in.
So now let's get into Breaking Bad. We are going to discuss. Pat is standing and stretching. We are going to talk about Breaking Bad. We have all seen through Episode 7.
I should point. That was not a stretch of like being tired. That was a stretch of like
a warm up stretch.
Pat just ran around the block once just to get prepared for this.
So we're going to talk about Breaking Bad. We have all seen the first 7 episodes of season 5. So everything except the finale is about to be discussed in detail. Now's your chance to stop listening. Yeah, Mike got shot.
We don't know what's going to happen next week.
We don't know what's going to happen next week. So Mike got shot last night. That was crazy. So my thing with Mike getting shot was, were you supposed to know the whole episode that was going to happen? It felt so inevitable, right?
It did feel to me like almost from the second that he left, you knew that like there was going to be an ending, and like it was sort of this question of, are they going to go for the inevitable thing or will there be some kind of twist? And to a certain extent, I feel like Breaking Bad is not necessarily like a show which in its long form is trying to do any twists. Like it feels like we're at this point now where it's gotten very fatalistic. So I was kind of like, I hope he lives, but he's probably not going to live.
Almost everyone's has a price on their head at this point, and so like it wasn't. And Mike certainly, even though he's a great character, and like you had to pick someone who's like a little more disposable to the story. It might be him.
You're right.
Well, I mean, he became the third main character, probably even more so than Skyler,
which is amazing
and
because
he's certainly more expendable than Skyler and Walt.
He became
and Jesse.
What the amazing thing to me is that, I guess I'm getting off the thing here, but like, I was thinking about just, in my mental eulogy for him and just how amazing he wound up being.
Mm-hmm.
He is like this amazing character. He kind of had like the Ben Linus effect of just like going from like a minor character to like maybe one of the best characters on the show. And he himself was the henchman of like Gus, who had the same trajectory. This guy who started very small on the show and then just like became, although where Gus was a villain, Mike is, sort of maybe.
Well, and he's really interesting too because when you bring that up, I sort of feel like in the show we've moved from this phase where we were kind of mainly aligned with characters who didn't know how to be criminals. That was always kind of the fun of it back in the day. Was Walt is kind of figuring his way out. Jesse's a total goof. I still remember like that scene. I think it's at the very end of the 3rd season when Mike goes to kill those guys and he just goes through them with sort of a No Country for Old Men worthy
like the
profession.
balloons.
Yeah, exactly. There's balloons and then he shoots a guy through the wall, and it's just like I remember
that other episode with the truck.
Exactly. I mean, like I remember when that happened, realizing okay, like we've now moved into a phase of the show where we are dealing with characters who know exactly what they're doing, and I was always impressed by the fact that even though he always had that aura of kind of invincibility, he still somehow became a really interesting character. I mean, in some ways, even more appealing than what Walt has become at this point.
Definitely, I think because he has. I guess at this point, you're rooting for whoever's like acting the most rationally, maybe, and I guess that once upon a time that was at least to a certain extent Walt, and now Mike was sort of the last. I think now with Mike gone, like maybe Jesse's kind of has the second.
But Jesse, I mean, what's going to happen with him now, man?
That scene. Can we talk about the scene? What do you want to talk about, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I also want to talk about the whole season, not just last night's episode. But last night's episode is so fresh. I feel like we got to talk about that a little bit.
I mean, it is like, I think it's one of the best episodes of the series. I really loved it. I loved how it brought everything together. I loved this. Everyone's cards came out on the table, kind of like it reminded me of the scene earlier this season with Walt and Skyler. Confronting each other in the bedroom, and and it ends with her telling him she wants the cancer back and everything. It was like a bunch of those scenes, like the Mike Walt scene, the Jesse Walt scene was like, I've been waiting for that scene like forever.
I mean, so even the Breaking Bads, I like some more than others, but even the ones I don't like that much, there's always. The show is so good that, like, even in a quote-unquote bad episode, there's, like, 5 incredible moments that are better than anything else you'll see on TV for months.
Yeah.
And that last night's episode definitely had them. The one that really stood out to me was when Mike, when the cops started showing up. Because Mike's, one of his defining characteristics, he's such a cool customer. And then the cops start showing up, and I think it's the first time in years of, them being in shit on that show, it's the first time you've ever seen him, like, scared. And, he knows he's kind of in the corner.
And the granddaughter's there.
Yeah, and the granddaughter. That was, I thought, an incredible scene. And, of course, it was full of incredible scenes. I just felt like, as soon as he left, I kind of thought he was going to die because... obviously he's not riding off into the sunset like, see you later, guys.
Well, and like there was some element too, and I've actually seen some complaints about this. This idea that why would Mike, who just wants to get out now, who already has this huge amount of distrust for Walt, why would he totally be okay with Walt being the guy to go and get his money?
Yeah.
And like I've sort of gone back and forth on that. And to me, one thing that I think I really like about the show is that it's kind of evolved to this point where it feels more like a Western than anything else.
the train robbery episode.
Yeah, there was the train robbery and the first scene of last
it's
night.
literally a train robbery episode.
And it's funny because I think that
a lot of like people in desert, a lot of like face-offs in the middle of
a lot of face-offs in the middle of the deserts. Even some of the music cues feel sort of like Sergio Leone-esque, or should I say
Jesse James reference at some point?
A lot of Jesse James references, and I think it's interesting because I think that what's happened to the show is what happens to a lot of really great dramas, which is that its final season, it's gotten a lot more ambitious. With that, I think comes there's occasionally some plot discrepancies here and there, but like just for the payoff of Walt talking to Mike at the end there, I mean that's right up there.
Yeah.
One of the best scenes in the show's ever done.
And then Walt, they're such. I feel like they're such mental equals. Walt has this like amazing like substitute teacher logic to him that he's been implementing, which is so cool. And then Mike has just sort of this like is also very practical and sort of And I think that's why that is what motivated Walt, because I don't think Walt went there intending to kill him, to be honest. I think he killed him in a moment of like he was not planning to kill him. I think just Mike just cut a little too deep with his words.
You're exactly right. Yeah,
and Walt didn't know what to do, and I think that was like a crime of passion.
He had taken the gun. He had taken the gun out of the bag before.
That is true. I know, which is kind of. I thought about that. I don't know. I mean, maybe that was just more of like a. I don't want Mike to have a gun.
No, I totally agree with you, though. I think that he saw the gun and took it and wasn't really sure what he was going to do with it, and he would have totally let Mike go. But yeah, then Mike just basically gave him, sort of talked to him in a way that, Walt, who was still flying high from the whole Heisenberg thing, was like, you don't talk to me like that. Like, I'm the freaking crime lord of Albuquerque.
Right.
So yeah, then he kills him. Then afterwards, he kind of comes up with this whole, God, what was his line again? It was like, oh, Mike, I'm sorry. Like, Lydia has the
Yeah. This whole thing could have been avoided.
This whole thing could have been avoided, and like that, I think that's him kind of trying to justify what he did by saying that I was covering. But yeah, I think it was literally a crime of passion.
In that scene, like he was so speechless. You're seeing him like just trying to grasp, but like he's always good at finding some thread of like justification for what he's doing. It's in such a good way. And that's what makes him so terrifying. In a way that you always, even now, like I always 10% agree with what Walt's doing because he's such a good.
Yeah.
He's just like a dad or.
Well, that's what I think is the most interesting thing about the show. I think last night for me was really the first time where I've always known logically, probably for the last 2 seasons, that Walt is not a good guy by any means, and that certainly the whole path of the show is him getting evil. Last night was the first time that I felt genuinely just disgusted by him, and sort of disgusted with myself for all the times that I've liked him.
Yeah, I know that Vince Gilligan's always said that's what he was going to do. I kind of always thought that would happen, like he would really turn in the last like 2 or 3 episodes, but it seems like I don't know how much humanity is left in him.
Well, I think the reason he wanted the names was he wants to kill those people, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is so that's pretty bad. He wants to kill 9 people. It's a lot of people.
At first that didn't bother me. It didn't bother me because I was like, oh well, they're all criminals. I'm using Walt logic here, but like that's like killing 9. I guess it's worse to kill 9 prisoners who are all because they're in the game. It's like The Wire, like they're all like. Even when Gale got shot, I was like, well, you know what? Like he wasn't good either. He was also creating a product that destroyed people's lives. So like. But which is why like killing children and stuff, they were putting their lives in danger when he really got reprehensible. But
I can't believe Landry shot that kid.
Streeter pointed though, he killed like 9 people. That'd be like national news if that happened. That's like a mass shooting.
So the thing I didn't like, I just want to defend my issues with last night's episode. Just
Please.
A little. The thing I didn't like was once I realized that Mike probably had to be killed, I felt like I could see the strings behind the like pulling, the right, like I could feel the writers working on a little more, like the scene where he's in the DEA office and they're just like he happens to overhear the conversation, or the thing about how Walt is the only one that can bring him the bag. You could just like, or also just like how he got away from those cops. You could just like you could feel them writing. It felt like they worked a little more backwards, and that's probably how they usually do it. But usually the show's so good that you can't really tell. Also, last week with when Mike did a terrible job. I guess you could justify this as he underestimates Walt as his thing, securing Walt when he left. And I think if you watch last week's episode back to back with this week's episode, I'm not sure that moment from last week with Jesse being like, let's get out, to that cliffhanger finale where Jesse's like, no, you got to hear the plan, to what the plan actually is and how Jesse supported him and how Walt was in the car. I'm not sure that totally plays the connection between those two episodes.
And this is sort of what I was trying to get at earlier. Like, when you hear Walt has a plan, you're kind of primed to expect, this is a show that's almost kind of chemically put together, and the plan is going to be some multifaceted thing that will
Like
somehow involve, like last season. And it's funny that his plan was basically, I'm going to wow those guys with my oratorical skills.
Yeah, I think plan was like the wrong word. It was just like, I think it was just him being like, because I was convincing, he's right. Like, it is worth more. The methylamine is worth more in his hands and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. But I kind of I preferred that he was able to, like, secure that money from the rival gang or whatever by using his, like, just by sheer all this arrogance and ego that he had built up, and his intelligence and stuff. To me that is sort of a little more enjoyable for me, and a little more believable to me than like a magnet heist or like
Definitely.
I
mean,
I hated that magnet heist.
I don't mean to complain. Like, I was also a little iffy on the magnet heist, but I like, obviously, the Say My Name scene that opened this week's episode was incredible. Like, I didn't mind it once they got there. It's just how they got there felt a little more clunky, and I'm also holding the show to a much higher standard than I'd hold any other show because it's Breaking Bad.
Well, but I mean, I think it deserves that standard.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I think that we may have actually talked about this a little bit last year, but this is a show that's in its last season. It's by far one of the great achievements in television history, but very few shows have good last seasons. Some great shows have terrible last seasons.
This show is in a pretty good position, though, in that they knew the end. They've known the ending is coming for a while. It's not overstaying its welcome.
I mean, sometimes
I think they're. We'll see if they stick the landing, but I think they're set up to do it much more so than a show like Lost, which had to kill time in the middle. Also, the one that everyone always cites for the bad ending.
I mean, I think maybe part of where these issues, your problems, or whatever you're saying coming are from me, like it being this penultimate episode, and there's just a lot of pieces that have to be moved, and like so part of that. But even having to do that, I just felt they still were able to work in so many good scenes. Like I think the Walt Jesse confrontation is like those two guys together. That's just like. When they're both nominated for Emmys, like that's going to be like this thing they show from both their clips.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean,
and then the Mike Walt confrontation, and then I was also going to say, also the Todd stuff. I thought was a really cool.
Yeah, Todd's a cool character.
I don't know how they have so little time to play with that, but like, I love the idea of like, it almost makes you respect Walt because he's sort of like all right, I'm losing Jesse, but like he knows he's willing to like invest in like a new kid. So he kept saying, I love the quote when he said. You applied yourself. That's all I ask,
Oh, no, yeah. You totally heard, like, the old chemistry teacher come out for a second there.
So good.
Well, and it's funny. I sort of like how with Todd, he's almost kind of like, the younger, better version of Jesse in some ways, where he just really wants to succeed in the Heisenberg operation.
He also asks less questions. He's, like, willing to shoot a kid. He's like, obviously, I think Walt knows that this kid's like willing to go a little further than Jesse ever was,
and he kind of shares. He's like a better pupil too. Like he shares like Walt's kind of like work ethic or whatever you want to call it, or whatever.
I felt like
you're maybe
they're maybe hinting at some Jesse and Skyler kind of had a moment where they connected, didn't they? Like maybe I think maybe something's developing there.
Like maybe Jesse's gonna help because actually there's a part that maybe Jesse's gonna help Skyler flee. I thought maybe because like there's that moment where he says "Vamonos" and she's like, "I wish."
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a fun little moment. But I definitely I love how they're kind of meeting each other.
What a great season for Skyler, who's not the most popular character, but she has been. First of all, I think she's always great, and like I think it's kind of unfair when people are like, "I hate Skyler," because she like was, it was the role she was playing. But man, this season she has been killing it on that show.
It's great. I mean, because you realize that like the reason why people hate her is because she kind of has to. I mean, she is like in some ways the quote unquote conscience of the show. Insofar as, especially this season, she's utterly unwilling to let Walt get away with what he's doing. She's
like, she just shut down.
Yeah. And I mean, like I think it's a testament to the actress Anna Gunn that like she's made that complete shutting down actually kind of interesting. I mean,
definitely.
There's like that one awesome scene between them last night.
Dinner table?
At the dinner table.
So
I don't even
good.
think like she said anything. Just the look on her face, like I'm not going to let you talk about this.
But then Walt, but when Walt trying to like going, I think he said, talking about like it's work, like a new guy today. She has a lot of promise. Like he's still able to.
Yeah.
use that logic. It's crazy.
It's always interesting. I mean, like sometimes, if you go down into the comment boards of, recaps of Breaking Bad, I remember, I think from the AV Club, Zach Handlin pointed this out. There's this kind of culture of people who are still on Walt's side, and it's always a very interesting look into the mindset of certain fans of the show. I mean, like,
I might be in that camp. Like, I definitely, he's despicable, but like, I've been on this ride with him, and I think Bryan, the writers obviously, and then Bryan Cranston, like as an actor, he's done such a good job of like, he at no point has he lost any of us. We're always there with him, I think. So like, and it's been so gradual that like I couldn't tell you a moment that like I completely, I was completely off board.
I mean, like Bryan Cranston, just what a crazy job of doing this character where, like, he sort of started off as this every guy, and he's also brilliant, and you totally believe that, and you also believe that he can do the worst possible things to everyone around him. I mean,
but it's been
like,
so little. I mean, it would have been one thing if it like just it's like happened in season 3 where like Skyler was shot and that's when he became Scarface and it was like a transfer. But they didn't do that. It's been so incremental and you've been able to like see how and it's like last night you're watching. I'm like, what is this? What happened? Like, what happened?
Have you guys rewatched early episodes of the show?
No.
it's so weird.
I have not. I'd like to revisit all of them before the final 8 episodes in a year or whatever. Because I watched it pretty much from the beginning, and it wasn't that great in the beginning. And I'm wondering if in retrospect, if I go back, I can see that they were building, or if it actually took a while to figure itself out.
It's funny. When it first came on, I actually was not that into it. I mean, the episode that I think really hooked me was, if you remember, the 3rd episode, which was all about, there's the guy down in the basement, and Walter's trying to decide if he's going to kill him or not. He kills him with the bike lock. It was funny because I recently rewatched that. I remember at the time, watching it, when he killed the guy, for me, it was kind of like when Tony Soprano would kill the guy, where I'm like, well, like, wow, that's really, like, a bad thing, but, like, maybe for the right reasons, the guy was going to kill him. This is sort of impressive. Not going to lie, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Watching it now, you sort of see like Bryan Cranston's face as he's killing him. It's this really like it's a face you'd come to see very often, like later on in the show. I mean, you realize that. I think maybe one reason why the show has, in many respects, only gotten better is that I think the writers were always aware of what they were doing with the character. Like I think they were always writing it with an eye towards like the evil is within this guy in some respects. So it really holds up on repeat viewing.
That first season also got cut off short, so you got to cut it a little slack.
Right?
There,
Didn't
it was a writer's
the writer's strike?
It was a writer's strike thing.
Oh man!
I saw a screenshot from that episode recently online where it's so funny where Walt makes the pro and con list, and it's like, con, killing is wrong.
I mean, the best one on there was con was Judeo-Christian principles.
I love that show. I think the moment where I really got on board for that show, and I think where it just kind of turned that corner for me was I think it's in the 3rd season when Skyler found out, because I think for a while, I probably just assumed that it was going to be a show where forever it was just like he was hiding it, and he was like, it was a little more capery, a little more mischiefy when it was like, oh, he's got to hide it from Skyler too. And when she found out, and which is a major shift in the show, and I saw that they were willing to change just the fundamental elements of the show, and that's something they've never stopped doing. I think that was the moment when I realized like this is gonna be a great show.
They have not made that leap with Hank. They've always like been very and yet that kind of works. Like I enjoy Hank. I guess although I'm still 10% on Walt's side, I think to justify myself morally, I will say my love of Hank has grown so much.
Hank is so fun.
I want him. The only reason I want Walt to die is so like he wins.
Hank has existed from the very beginning to eventually find out about Walt. Like they've been teasing it for years, and I can't. There's obviously so much dramatic potential there. I can't imagine he doesn't find out about Walt. You've got to see him find out about Walt.
And I don't think if you watch, and I think he starts the show it's the same way Walt's Walt has. The character has changed so much. At the same course, our perception of Hank, he's gone from like this like kind of turd, annoying brother-in-law comic relief character to like this like this hero. And he's still kind of a turd. He also kind of has like a teacher sort of annoying gym teacher-ness about him.
He's got like a high school jockiness to him.
But you kind of love it now, especially now that his like sanctimony and his like hiding, always being about the law and like.
I remember when he had the Cuban cigars, and he was like, he said, like sometimes you got to cut corners, or sometimes.
Yeah, that's like the one time I feel like they ever he tested his like theory about. But now all that like stuffy copness is like seems so necessary in the face of like
it's great. I mean, like to me, it's almost like they've sort of really in the background built him up into this great detective figure, even to the extent that now he kind of has like like that limp that makes him seem like way more theatrical than he used to.
I never thought about that.
I mean, and you realize too that like there's an aspect to him where it's kind of like the hero's journey. Like starts off as this kind of like brutish guy, and then has that really awesome like seasons 2 and 3. I feel like there were all those times when he was just like depressed and had these like horrible like kind of anxieties and crises. Winds up getting shot.
Even before he got shot, I forgot that he had like the post-traumatic stress disorder.
And I love to like that was back when they went to Mexico so rarely, and whenever they did, it was like hell on earth, and you break out the filters, and they're like guys getting decapitated and blown up, and somehow like I love that he's come through all of that, and now in a way it's almost like his path has gone right alongside of Walt, right? Like now he's in charge of the local DEA, and like he's sort of dealing with bigger issues now. You have to figure that they're so excited to eventually write the scene when he finds out.
I know.
What is that going to be?
What is that going to be?
I don't know.
When does it happen? So this is a big question for me this season has been, do I treat next week the finale of this year? Is that a season finale?
Oh, it's so annoying, isn't it?
It's so annoying.
I feel to me it feels. This episode felt so much like a penultimate episode.
It did.
I think maybe they structured it. They knew they were going to do it.
There's 8 episodes this year and there's 8 next year, and technically this is one season that they've split into 2 parts, and I think they did that just to keep it on the air a little long. My guess, I don't know, maybe Darren, is maybe too, Pat. I don't mean to discount you. No. Maybe if Vince Gilligan only wanted to do so many more episodes and they need to spread it over time, maybe it's a contractual thing.
It's actually very confusing, and it's something that sort of happened before with Sopranos. If you remember, the last season of that show ran for kind of an odd amount. Like I think it was 21 episodes. Battlestar, I think, had the same thing. With this show, the weird thing was, if you remember, last summer, kind of when AMC was going on a tear of pissing everybody off, they were saying that they might not bring it back, or they might only bring it back for a 6-episode final season. There was some notion that when they made the finale of the last season, they filmed it assuming that it could be the series
which
finale,
it could have been.
It absolutely could have been. I think ultimately where they landed on was, this show is maybe not super profitable for us. This is all pure speculation, by the way. But we do want to bring it back, and we want to kind of like extend its life because we love the fact that it gets great critical notices. So I imagine this was some kind of compromise. But it does seem to me like I sort of thought it was going to be like Sopranos and Battlestar, where it would end on a very unsatisfactory mid-season break and be gone for a year. It does seem like it could absolutely.
It does. So they knew this they knew this before they started shooting, but it's been, they haven't said, and he's not going to say, Vince Gilligan, I'm treating this as 2 8-episode seasons, or, like, if it was just episode 8 in the middle of 16 episodes, every episode a little bit has a cliffhanger, but I'd be a little disappointed if next week, like, something big doesn't happen. Hopefully Hank finding out, and like then the last 8 episodes could be Hank versus Walt.
Yeah, let's just like throw this out there. I kind of think that all along I thought that this whole 16 episode sequence was going to be about like Walt kind of being on top, and it was going to be all about him being the emperor now. And like I don't know about you guys, that first scene of last night's episode sort of felt to me like that was maybe his peak. Like that was definitely it. He's reached the pinnacle, and it's all going to be downhill from here.
He had literally one car ride of happiness.
Yeah, one car ride of joy, and then from here it's all going to go down. Maybe not, and maybe him and Todd are going to have this new empire. But we're ultimately working towards that first scene of the season premiere.
Just
where
seems like at this point, like they have so much cleanup to do. Like, how can he even start thinking about meth again for a while? Like, he's got so much stuff to do. I did love one thing I loved about last night is how, and I feel like a lot of times those last few episodes is how like. They all I love that. I really like the scene in Saul's office. Saul had some great stuff last night, I thought.
Oh, man. Essential.
The brain trust. He's like, you're here with the brain. They're on the phone with Mike.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice because I was like, oh, maybe they're all going to like work together and like they kind of realize that like don't just try and screw each other over or something. Or, I momentarily thought maybe we were enter this thing where it's like, oh, Mike, Jesse, Walt, and Saul are all going to realize that they had only by working together. This is how naive I was. What can they do?
We were all so young then, Pat.
I also loved how Saul was really in that one scene. He was like mad at them for using the other. I got the sense that like there's this world of like just shady lawyers, and like that's the other one, and Saul's like really jealous that they use the other.
Oh, that was another, I thought, kind of a shortcut, because Gomi, who's now become a character whose name I know, Gomi, who's Hank's assistant, I guess, he was like, you want to trail a lawyer? It seemed like the whole point of the security deposit room is like they need a warrant or something to like just open up the door on you. It seemed like bad lawyering on his part.
And also, yeah, like, well, what exactly? So they see him with the money. What is that? It's dollar bills. I mean, I guess it's because like the lawyer is going to flip. But again, shouldn't Mike have planned this out a little bit better?
I think the lawyer should have planned it out a little better. Like I assumed that the safety deposit room was safe, and that was as a lawyer you're safe. I mean, I don't know anything about like law, much less, and then you don't have to, there's TV law too, which is
sure. Well, here's what I couldn't figure out is so, and I actually kind of care about this a little bit. Does this mean that the money that Mike left to his granddaughter has been taken?
That's a great question.
Also?
I think so.
I think they said something along the lines of whether or not what they thought. Like, well, I think there was a conversation with Gomi and Hank maybe after they had caught the lawyer, and like, oh, the lawyer's willing to give us Ermintrout. And they're like, oh, do you think Ermintrout would flip? And they were like, and that was the debate, like, if Mike were to be arrested. And I think they said I think they seized the money. I don't know like what that means, whether Mike gets it back or not. But like,
I think they got the money.
That episode just got way more depressing.
Definitely,
if his granddaughter didn't even get the money that he was working for.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Let's get into wild speculation. What do you guys think's going to happen next week? Let me open up here. I think using Todd's prison connection to kill. Remember they set up that Todd has a prison connection.
Yeah.
Using Todd's prison connection to kill the 9 dudes. That's my theory.
Right, that's good.
Do you think it's gonna be like opening montage, sort of Godfather style, where you see all 9 dudes being killed
I would not
in ever more dramatic
Breaking Bad
ways?
is like pacing wise. I would not put it past them.
I also think last scene of the season, Hank catching Walt red-handed in some way, and like one last shot of Hank. Cut to black. See you next year.
I think So I'm gonna build off of that. I think that the first scene is going to be like taking place immediately after the scene we saw in the season premiere. I'm betting it's going to be another flash forward. We're going to get some little indicator of who Walt is going to shoot.
Return to that
I think yeah. I think so. I think it's going to
a year later.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have like a flash forward. Then I think it's going to go back, and yeah, like episode's going to play out. But yeah, I think the very last thing is going to be something with Hank figuring it out, and whether that's him sort of looking at something weirdly, and that's the cut to black.
I think that's going to be it, because then there's the tease of like, then you're going to spend all year wondering like what the first thing he's going to say is going to be. And that's kind of, I remember after the season 3 finale when they killed Gale, I remember, and there was a long gap before season 4, and I remember just the whole time being like, I cannot wait to see the first scene between Walt and Gus. Like, what is going to happen? And obviously Hank's got to find out about Walt. How frustrating would it just be if like their plot lines just never intersected at all? Like Hank just like loses track of that case and just finds another drug bust just completely unrelated.
Do you think that Jesse will ever find out? I'm not providing a theory and just asking a different question. Will Jesse ever find out about Brock, that what Walt did to Brock?
I think maybe because there's a loose end there
or season 2 or his girlfriend.
I think the girlfriend, whose name I can't remember, she probably not, because Walt is the only person on Earth that knows that. But the Brock situation
ties into
Saul is aware of it, and his assistant, what's his name? Very funny guy.
The big guy.
Oh, Huel.
The 15th bald man on the show.
Huel and Saul both know about the kid. So I could see that coming back to haunt him. And what an interesting scene that would be if Jesse found out about that.
I think you're right. I mean, it's really funny because you realize that, for me, the show that Breaking Bad has always kind of come closest to is The Sopranos. But they're very different shows in a way, because Sopranos, I think, was always in its own way, maybe more so deconstructing the story than anything else. And, each season of Sopranos would always kind of build to this moment where you'd think there'd be a big climax, and usually there was an anti-climax. And it was very, built into the show. To me, well, I mean, I was going to say, to me, Breaking Bad is the exact opposite. I think we're building to something where every sort of, loose end is going to be addressed. So, that scene between Walter and Jesse is just going to be a mind-blower.
I think that, The Sopranos always aspired to be, very, smart and philosophical, almost to a fault. I actually like the ending, but I think as an example, that ending can be it's a cool idea, and I'm sure like a lot of awesome French movies have done that. But at the same time, is it the right ending for this show that people invested so much time in?
It'd be the wrong ending for Breaking Bad, that's for sure.
I think Breaking Bad is like almost the flip. It's just like much more. It knows it entertains first, and then but it's also tied into
absolutely.
Like, such cool
Well,
questions.
and this may be like the other cool thing about it is, at least on the strength of this first half season, again, a lot of shows that are this good do sort of disappear up their own sort of philosophical notions of what they are and what they're about. And
Battlestar.
Battlestar,
I'm looking at you, Battlestar Galactica.
certainly. Well, and even to the extent that both Battlestar and Lost, I think that they were shows which decided what they were about, maybe after already establishing what everyone else thought it was about. I mean, you thought that both shows were sort of about this question of faith versus reason, and actually by the end it was like, we all believe, yay, faith. And it feels to me like Breaking Bad works through a bunch of different ideas, but yeah, first and foremost, like they want to entertain, and like it almost seems like now they're like, we're really getting to the fun stuff now.
And and you said it took this theme of like good or evil or whatever you want to call it, and it just like stuck with that from the beginning and has been playing that chord, which is like almost maybe makes for a stronger, tighter narrative. Similarly, like unlike Lost or a lot of other shows or Deadwood, even I think it's focuses on like just one character. You maybe could expand it to 2 or 3, but like
it's true,
and that that's cool. You kind of don't see that quite as much in like these kinds of like big.
No, I mean the other shows we're mentioning like Battlestar, Lost, Deadwood, Sopranos.
Even Sopranos like really gets his web out.
Yeah, those are all ensemble casts. Sopranos less than the others, but like definitely more so than Breaking Bad. The only one I can think of is The Shield. The Shield is very much
Shield's pretty focused.
But generally, even Justified, which is, I think, maybe my second favorite drama after Breaking Bad right now, has very much expanded to be way more. It's all about this whole. I mean, it's like Harlan County on Justified is like Springfield. There's like all these different characters.
That has its own awesomeness, but like, there's definitely something to be said for like just keeping your cast.
No, I think Breaking Bad's one of the...
Well, it's funny too because like it's happening at a time when I think so many shows almost like they do the huge ensemble shows. I mean, like
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is like that. I mean, like there's shows like Treme or Boardwalk Empire where like both shows that I really enjoy that are like really just kind of like, look at this world. We have a cast of millions of people.
I haven't heard a lot of people praise Treme actually.
Oh, Treme is a fantastic show.
Yeah, as much as I love The Wire and I love me some Wire. I've never actually watched Treme.
Well, this is what everyone says.
I think that's...
You're the first... I mean, now I kind of want it. You're the first person. I was waiting for someone to say this.
I'm also, by the way, one of maybe like 400,000 people in America who watch the show. It's probably the least watched show on television. But no, it's great. Speaking of someone who doesn't like jazz or food very much, it's a show about jazz and food, and I loved it, man. No, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, you said that it's going to be the show that people talk about in 4 years from now. Like, why wasn't I watching it at the time?
I think that like there may be... I'm horrible at trends, so in 4 years I'm going to go back and laugh when I say this, but I think that there may be some sort of like burgeoning like jazz like revival coming entirely from Treme. I only say this because I recently went to Brooklyn Bowl and they had a New Orleans jazz band playing there, and they basically just played everything they play on Treme, and I, as someone who knows nothing about jazz, was like, oh, like I feel good about myself.
I know this.
Now. Like,
was that great?
I know this from that TV show.
To bring this back to Breaking Bad, just pick. I guess now we're in like the speculation thing. I was going to talk about a specific scene.
No rules here, Pat.
There was
Roll
a
with
cool
it,
scene
man.
with Todd. That's great with Todd and Walt cooking and the musical montage and like
it's the monkey song.
Breaking Bad's always been so good at like they're so good at just mixing things up. And,
I mean, even the safety deposit box opening, which would be like any other TV show would be like, and we'll cut to a little bit later so you don't have to see her opening all the safety deposit boxes. This show's like, no. Let's get the point of view of the key as it turns.
There was also, I thought that they started the act with that scene, and like we're seeing a character who we actually have seen before, but I think at the time I didn't recognize him at the time.
Yeah, just barely.
And it was very almost. I had a flashback to Lost. Where like Lost is always very good at like just throwing you. I'm like, why? This is an entirely new character. This is an entirely new location. I don't know what's happening. I don't know anything. And I always find that very exhilarating.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like,
and that's something this show did before too, with the great cold open this year with the guy eating the chicken nuggets at Madrigal. Yeah. It was another one.
Cold opens in general.
And the kid was another one where the kid on the dirt bike, where you're like, You're like, what's going on? I'm disoriented, but it's Breaking Bad, so I'm gonna trust you.
Yeah.
I'm in good hands.
I think it's like one of the best directed shows I've ever seen. Like it's the only show you kind of watch that has such a strong visual style.
that
like,
train robbery was like a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, last night's episode, I got like, and I get this a lot when I watch that show, I get like a knot in my stomach because I'm so nervous. I don't even know what I'm nervous about. I know it's a TV show, but I am like, when he's like replaced getting the bug out of the picture, I literally have a knot in my stomach.
There's also the ricin in the someone. Someone
yeah.
mentioned that,
Oh,
and,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I
People
think there's
always
no
talk
way they
about
would
that.
show that.
You know what's going to
It
be
wasn't
bad?
gonna come back.
You're going to know it's coming back when it's in the previously on Breaking Bad. And they like show him putting it back there.
Yeah.
You're going to know that's the
Well,
episode where the cigarette comes back.
Those are easy to skip. I feel like if you really want, but yeah.
Well, like it's funny to me too, because like one of the most common theories about the ricin that
I
I've
think
heard.
actually really quick. I feel like I could imagine in like a few years, shows just doing away with those. Like they're kind of on their last legs. I
Sons
feel
of
like.
Anarchy, which is not a great show anymore, but Sons of Anarchy's previously ons are like 5 full minutes long. It's like a mini movie.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just funny. I've never actually seen Sons of Anarchy. I mean, like that's also like another show like Breaking Bad, where like I mean, it's kind of like set in the criminal world, but like
Yeah.
and everyone's basically evil on that show too, right?
Well, they're
At
evil.
this
Yeah,
point?
but the interesting thing is like some are trying to get out of it, some are trying to get into it. You know,
okay.
like some are like Sons of Anarchy is the first season's okay. The second season is amazing with Henry Rollins and Alan Arkin, and it's incredible. And it's never quite gotten back to that point yet. And particularly the finale of last year, it's coming back soon. The season 4 finale, it was like a total like a complete like a very arbitrary reset button. It was really shady. There was one episode last year. This is how bad the show was last year. Just to boil it down, there was one episode that ended with a character who had been under a lot of stress and whatever, and he hung himself. Very dramatic. And then the beginning of the next episode, like the branch on the tree had broken, he hadn't hung himself.
No.
How cheap is that?
Oh,
That's like
come on.
It's so
That's like those old like 40s serials where the car is off the cliff, and then like next week it just doesn't go off the cliff.
it's so just cheap. It really is cheap.
Well, and I guess like to again bring it back to Breaking Bad.
But that show, it's worth watching just for that second season. That show, it's phenomenal.
But it's funny because I mean, like something that I find with a lot of FX dramas, and admittedly, like I haven't watched The Shield, but like with a lot of their other stuff, I find that they're so well done, and they're very often in this world of kind of moral ambiguity. But there's those little storytelling shortcuts that they tend to take, even Unjustified, which I think is a fantastic show. There's elements of it where I sort of feel like I'm just watching, like, well, Raylan Givens is the ultimate badass,
Totally.
and that's fun, and I love when that happens. Somehow Breaking Bad has managed to not really take those shortcuts.
Yeah, and it's
generally
also
speaking.
risen above, and it's like, as much as I love Justified, I'd have a lot harder time talking about it with people for an hour, because Breaking Bad, and we've really been on the surface for most of this conversation. There's like all these themes, like Pat was saying, of good and evil, and as good as Justified is, it doesn't go nearly as deep as Breaking
Bad is also just like, to me, like a great portrait of like the American businessman. I mean, there's this element of the show where the first season was this kind of like mom and pop operation. They're operating out of the RV, and then it kind of expands, and they start like making deals, and by this point we're basically like a globalized operation.
And I think
we're getting.
This was last week's episode, maybe, when Walt talks buyout. Yeah, Walt talks about gives the gray matter story, which I thought was real. It was like big. It was a very it's not like it's like Lost, where like there's like the you find out that this guy is actually a wizard or something like that. But like I'm sorry, I love Lost. Obviously, I'm not trying to, but. It opens the show up so much. We didn't know this story.
Yeah, it was a very interesting piece of his. I mean, it's a critical piece of his
the fact that he's been checking
backstory.
it every day for the last like 4 years.
Every week,
I mean,
he said, I think,
it's the magic of writing. I mean, they just write. He hasn't actually been doing that. The actor never did that. But like looking at the show, that context, and I think it's definitely like opened up. It definitely explains his motivation a lot. Like, it's like I think I read one review and they said it's like the ultimate midlife. He's basically going through like the ultimate midlife crisis. He's a guy middle aged, found out, kind of had this big with a cancer scare of like his own mortality, and it was really felt like he never succeeded at business or whatever. And this is like you must get the sense that like you could argue from the second he found he had cancer, he was like already like on that course, or already knew that he wanted to be famous or whatever.
Absolutely, and like it almost feels like weirdly like the cancer sort of justified it for him in a way. I mean, like I remember earlier in the season, I got to talk to Vince Gilligan on the phone, and one thing that he said, this was right after Madrigal, where there was the great line where Walter was like, "I'm $40,000 in the hole right now," which you're just like, you've been doing this for 4.5 seasons now, and you have less money now than you used to. And Vince Gilligan said, Walt kind of likes that because now he gets to justify cooking again. It's an interesting portrait of a guy who's always finding reasons to sort of justify itself. What I loved about the gray matter thing is that, in a lot of ways, I think what's been great about Breaking Bad is that they're very willing to kind of, do what all great shows do, which is evolve a little bit. And Pat, you pointed out how Mike and Gus were not meant to be big characters, but they were just so interesting.
I mean, they might have been. I mean, they started as small characters.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, I think that the creators have been on the record as saying that Gus Fring was just in thanks to the actor's name whose name I'm forgetting, Giancarlo Esposito. He was just so good that of course we had to use him. And it seems to me like they've managed to sort of do that, but at the same time, if you go back, there's that the great episode in the first season where you meet his business partner, and it's clear that there is a lot of stuff there that the show just kind of it's always lurking in the background somehow. That's why I think in that episode, it doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere. It feels like this thing that he's really been living with his entire life.
Yeah, and someone's I read another thing, and but I've always thought the same way. Like the Mike was like, everyone on the show is like sort of a different is approaching this lifestyle from a different way. Like Jesse's kind of all about like the heart, he's like really, he loves the excitement, that's kind of, Walt is sort of, I guess, the brain. He sort of uses logic to justify it. Mike's kind of like goes by his gut or whatever. And I mean, I think those three this season have been the three main guys.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know where I was going with that.
But I mean, to me, what's interesting about what you just said, it kind of gets back to the whole Jesse thing. Like, where do you guys think? Like, I mean, is Jesse going to be like coming after? Because I mean, like, when you think about it, yeah, like, there's two people Walter has killed, or in the girlfriend's case, sort of indirectly let die, and then Brock, who he almost killed, who are all very close to Jesse. I mean, like, Jesse is justified to commit a huge act of vengeance against Walter White at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, I feel like to a degree I can predict, like, it's going to come to, I'm like, Hank's going to find out about it, or Jesse's going to find out. I've got no idea what happens when you put them in the same room with each other. I don't even know how to figure it out. That's what makes the show so exciting.
One thing that was, I guess, a little weird about last night's episode was that, I mean, that scene with Walt and Jesse, I think probably my favorite scene of that episode. And, like, all the things, the dialogue, when he, like, I love how he just breaks him down, like, he's talking about, like, what do you have, video games and go-karts? And all those lines. And the line about hell, remember the hell? He's like, if there's a hell,
that was great.
Yeah. I can't believe they've gotten to a place where Walt is saying that. But then after that, yeah, like, they're kind of, I thought that was, like, that to me could have been the last time those two people ever saw each other, which would be crazy, but, like, what else was there left to say? They just threw it out there. But now I'm wondering, can Jesse, I guess maybe he's going to be brought back into the fold. It seems very unlikely, but like, because later on in that episode, they reluctantly were forced together because of once the lawyer had been caught or whatever. And that kind of repeats itself. I think like circumstances force Walt and Jesse, like, back together to, like, for self-preservation.
Yeah. But also, Walt was like, no more bodies because we're in control now, and killed someone by the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Last time, to bring it back to how we opened it, I was saying how you predicted last time when we were all together, how you predicted that Walt was going to be responsible, and as I recall, it wasn't like you thought about how Walt could do it or what Walt, like, trying to figure out Walt's game, but you were just saying thematically every season ends with Walt sinking a level deeper and doing something a little worse. And I honestly don't know what he could do at this point that would bring him a level deeper. It's maybe killing the 9 guys in prison.
It has to be something with his family, maybe too, right? I mean,
killing someone in his family.
Like, I mean,
leaving them
at what
exposed.
point? Yeah, exactly. Like, at what point does Skyler kind of become? Because I mean, in the same sense that him killing the 9 guys is him being very fastidious and kind of cleaning up after himself. Like,
I think she's the last one because I think he has this. Well, first I'll say I think that
I think Mike dying is taking a lot of the pressure off Skyler dying next year.
Yeah. And, well, I think killing Mike kind of is a level deeper in a weird way because, to me, what makes it a little more brutal than the other murders is, like, it's kind of a crime of passion. It wasn't like a crime. I don't, you got that sense. He wasn't. I don't think Darren. You said you kind of agreed that like he wasn't necessarily planning to kill Mike. He tried to warn Mike about the cops.
Which reminded me of the scene when Gus tried to warn Hank when Gus called Hank and was like,
yeah.
"You have 3 minutes. They're coming for you," or whatever it was.
So
Let's call it the Taken scene.
Yeah. So basically, like just seeing that. I mean, to me, that was the most shock. I mean, I guess that Mike was going to die. That was one thing, but just like seeing Walt that flustered, and I don't think there was any like there was no like, well, I have to do this, and for the good of my family. It was just like, fuck you, I'm the kingpin. Don't talk that way about me or whatever. So I think that might be like the sort of the moral like. But I can't imagine
that now he doesn't even really like consider his bad deeds anymore. It's just he's at this point where he can kill without even really like.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he's certainly. I think maybe. I'm sure. I would love to hear like. I think Walt can put it in terms that make it sound justifiable and logical, but I think he's definitely.
How interesting has his performance been? When you say putting it in terms, like his performance, like seeing Bryan Cranston playing Walt lying, and he's done that thing a lot where he has like a seed of truth in it, like when he tells Marie about Ted, or when he's crying in Hank's office how Skyler doesn't love him anymore. You can see this is such an incredible like. To see him acting like he's acting, it's like too low. I don't even know how you begin to approach that as an
absolutely.
actor.
It's like just bad enough. I think I was some boogie
because he's doing it well. He's acting. He's doing a phenomenal job acting like he's acting well, but less well than Walter White's less good of an actor than Bryan Cranston is, but he's pretty great.
Yeah, and. I do also really like the way I heard once it's like the commentary for like Boogie Nights or something. Since they're all playing porn stars, they have to act in these porn star scenes, and they were all like the hardest thing to do was act in those porn scenes because like you want to do it right but not hokey or whatever. But I think
L.A. Noire, the game L.A. Noire, I thought one of the flaws of it was like you had to guess when people were lying, and it was always really obvious because it was for gameplay, they had to like. Make it clear they were lying, so the person would say the thing and then like immediately roll their eyes or like do this very very obvious tell because they had to act like they were acting. And I thought that was a great game, but the actors were not all up to Bryan Cranston's standard, and maybe the technology's not there yet either.
I thought it was a terrible game mainly because every actor's version of lying was roll your eye to the back of the head.
Yeah. There was a lot of that. Of that.
Yeah, copyright.
They should have Bryan Cranston play all the characters. That's what we need to develop the technology for. A video game where Bryan Cranston plays all the characters. Breaking Bad video game, that'd be kind of fun. I don't know what it is yet.
What about Walt Jr.? What's up with Walt Jr.? Is he like they sort of take him out of the picture?
He's gonna find out too. There's I just think that like anything that could be interesting. This is a show, and again, the moment I formed this was when Skyler found out about him midway through the show's run. There's so much potential dramatic energy in that scene where Walt Jr. finds out about his dad that I have to assume before the end of the run it's going to happen. And
I think basically Walt just has this like support structure around him of people that he pretends to care about or that he needs or that and that I think it's just going to keep getting narrower and narrower until but then Skyler will be like the last person because that was his. I think Skyler represents that. I can imagine them sort of just like wanting to keep Walt Jr. and the baby out of the picture just because it's like storytelling wise just cleaner to have like whatever. Skyler is basically the family. Skyler represents his whole like thing, and so I just think it ultimately will wind up just being him and her or something and. I don't know what happens then. Does he kill her? Does he not kill her?
It is interesting. I mean, like, the one cool thing about the show, because in a lot of respects it does have this almost kind of classical, like, tragic narrative to it in some ways. Like, I find myself wondering, is the logical endpoint of all of this, Walt dying? Or is it, like, an even darker show where he lives, does he have to live?
Certainly,
I mean, it's the same question that people always used to ask about Sopranos to a certain extent, and maybe it's just because I think Breaking Bad is actually going to provide us with that ultimate answer, as you were saying, Jeff, it would feel weird if this show decides to sort of end on an ambiguous note. And I find myself wondering, is it a horrible ending if Walt winds up dead and, he's left destruction in his wake? Or is it an even worse ending if, he started the show with this whole idea of I'm doing it for my family? Is it worse if in the end he directly goes against his family? For his own reasons.
But I'm wondering if he'll ever, even if that happens, and I'm sure it'll suck for him, but like, I think I could imagine him ending it that way, and with him, but him maybe somehow maintaining his empire, or at least maintaining the possibility to have an empire, and he will just like I think his greatest like the source of his evil is his like ability to justify anything to himself, and like I think there's no limit to what he could do. Like especially next week, we'll see if like is he going to be, and I think from maybe some clips of next week's episode, like he's not done like pulling the strings yet, you know, like he's never down and out.
This show is good. All right, real quick, let's finish this up. Let's do everyone say their favorite scene from this year so far. Mine was the opening to the episode after they had killed the boy, and that silent scene where they like dismantled his bike and then opened up the barrel. I mean, how many TV shows are on basic cable where they're burning dead children in barrels of acid? They really went there.
I love how that's become a recurring thing on the show now, where they don't even need to really establish what's going on. Like they bring out the barrel, you know someone's getting melted.
And yeah,
next week, we need barrel next week.
They had laid like you couldn't if they had never done the barrels before, they couldn't have done that scene as well. But because they had laid all that groundwork, it was such a good scene. Mm-hmm. What about you guys?
I mean, there's some strong contenders in this week's episode, namely the Jesse Walt confrontation. I think I just love like a good back and forth like argument scene like that, especially with that much like two actors like that. With
Jesse
that
and
much
Walt seem to get
baggage.
like one a year. Like remember when they had that fight in the house?
This one was not physical though, you know.
Yeah,
This one was, I guess actually that was the only physical one. So I'm sorry.
This one was emotional,
yeah.
which is even more brutal.
Well, every
in some
time
ways.
they go through so much in between them that every time it happens, the stakes are higher than the last time.
I think a similar scene. It's a similar scene, but I thought it was it kind of for me. It was almost like, oh, that's what they're doing this season. Was the Walt Schuyler scene from I can't remember the name of the episode, but it was what the hell was the name of the episode?
Was it right after she goes into the water?
Yeah, it was the name of that. Do you remember the name of that one?
51?
51 maybe?
Is that possible?
Yeah,
Oh, because
it was his birthday.
Yeah.
His birthday, yeah.
That one where because he it's sort of like that was the first time in the season I think that someone like there were people like just really throwing their cards on the table. I think that kind of is carrying over, especially with last night's episode through the season. And
Yeah.
and it was just like it's like a new kind of show now. Like you said, it kind of is good at reinventing itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, like, you know, there's so many great sort of scenes, especially scenes like that are very specifically, almost like for me, they always feel like how, Inglourious Bastards is sort of a movie that's all about two people sort of interrogating each other, and every scene there's always this very intense conversation,
Sure.
and that's kind of what Breaking Bad feels like to me now. Just all these scenes of hyper intense digging into each other.
It does feel like a Tarantino movie.
It feels a lot
Yeah,
like a Tarantino
definitely.
movie now.
There's like kind of like crime, but like 10% funny, 15% funny maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for me, like, just the shot that kind of popped into my head when you asked for the favorite scene is during that same episode when they're celebrating his 51st birthday, and he's sort of talking all about like the past year, and I remember it's all in one shot where you kind of see Skyler get up and leave the table.
Yeah.
I just thought that was like, I mean, Bryan Cranston, like, I love that he's won the Emmy every year of this show, and I hope he continues to win the Emmy.
That was
this
directed
year.
by was it Rian Johnson?
Rian Johnson, who did Brick.
Fly and the Fly episode of Breaking Bad,
Exactly.
which is pretty well regarded, and then a bunch of movies and stuff. But
That was the great.
and it shows. It's very like I mean that the pool stuff. That no other show does that kind of like that kind of
Visually
stuff. Yeah.
spectacular, yeah.
There was a great moment in that scene when he's getting up when she's like being very weird, and Hank's like, "Uh-oh, pool party." He's like trying to cut the tension a little.
Good.
That show's full of like little moments like that. Like I've been listening to the official Breaking Bad podcast. Believe it or not, this is not the official Breaking Bad podcast. You're still listening to the Jeff Rubin Show, but there is a official Breaking Bad podcast with Vince Gilligan, a few of the editors, and like they always get a few random crew members. Sometimes they have the actors on the show, and they were talking. I was listening to the one. I haven't listened to this week's yet because it's not up as of us recording this. But the one for last week's episode, which ended with that MacGyver scene where where Walt freed himself from the wall. Vince Gilligan was talking about how great the moment is. Or he really enjoyed the moment. He's, he wasn't patting himself on the back too much, but
I'm the best.
after Mike ties up Walt, and he says, "Sorry, Walt," and he was talking about how like that Mike would do that, but also apologize for it.
Yeah.
Spoke a lot about his character. And I feel like that show is just full of little touches like that make it such a rich tapestry of wonderfulness.
I mean, there are shows that are really, really well written, and where you can tell that the writing staff spends just a ton of time, figuring out how every little note kind of fits together. And there's shows that are really, really well shot and that are kind of have an interesting look. And like, it's weird that like this show is all of that and more. It feels like every actor is just really like maybe aware they're doing like the work of their life and is just kind of rising to the material.
It kind of feels feels like, maybe tell me if I'm reaching too far on this one, but I've been rewatching Arrested Development, and it kind of feels in a way like a dramatic Arrested Development, because Arrested Development, I can get the sense from the writing, like the writing was never lazy. Like it felt like they were just they're always looking for places to cram in jokes. And this is kind of the dramatic equivalent where like they're always looking for places to give you new details or something in the background's happening. Not for comedy usually, but for to give you a better sense of the characters.
It's even kind of the same way where like one of the cool things about Arrested Development that you only really figure out when you watch it all in one go, which of course I'm sure everyone's done at this point.
Yeah.
With like
or should have.
Yeah, or should have, is that like the sort of uber plot of that show with like the business and why he went to prison.
Yeah.
It's very, very twisted, but it sort of does make a certain amount of sense in the end. And it's interesting that like that plot was never the point of it. It wasn't a show you'd say like there's a huge mythology to, even though there really was. And Breaking Bad is very similar. I mean, like, when you cut over to Germany and you meet Gus Fring's business partner, that's definitely cool, but it's almost like, they sort of do that and they always bring it back around to, how it affects the main characters in the end. And it's as funny as Arrested Development too.
Are you guys gonna watch the season finale? I don't know. I might just skip. I might just skip it.
I might rewatch The Newsroom.
So you have to cover the microphone like, I'm just kidding.
It's such a good show. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just such a. It's like.
Yeah.
Where does it fit in the pantheon?
Well, what happens next season? I guess we kind of always speculated a little bit on that, right?
I think the whole pantheon question is very interesting. Yeah, I
think we might have talked about this last year, but I think like it's up there now in that upper echelon with Sopranos and Deadwood and I was gonna say Lost.
Well,
Maybe Lost.
I mean, yeah. Like, what is like the quote unquote pantheon now? I mean,
the canon.
Like,
Sopranos, obviously.
Sopranos is up there. Deadwood's up there. The Wire is up there.
I think Breaking Bad is up there.
Well, Breaking Bad's certainly the most.
I'm struggling to think of a fifth show to put with those four.
I mean, Mad Men is what I would.
Oh yeah, Mad Men might round out the five. Can you think of a sixth one that goes there?
I mean, it's hard because I think we're talking exclusively about dramas, right?
Yeah.
It seems weird to me to try to mix it in.
I think after those five, then you get to the next year, which is still very good, and there you have stuff like Battlestar and Lost. It's obviously still excellent, but very flawed. Maybe The Shield goes there, but I think those five, and I think Breaking Bad is up there with those five.
I put the show kind of reminds me of The Shield in the sense that like it's the level of tension that like even The Wire never really had the level of tension that like Breaking Bad or The Shield has in terms of like you would have described it very well. In The Shield, like literally they're like one heartbeat away from going to jail for the rest of their lives for like most of the series, but it works. I mean, I think, and right now certainly we're definitely in that spot with Breaking Bad, but I think my favorite, the show mixes. It's definitely the smartest show that is also really, really, really entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
it's the most probably of all those shows. Let me think. The Wire, Deadwood, Sopranos. It's definitely the most fun of those five shows.
Well, and that's really...
Sorry, Mad Men, the suitcase episode.
No, but I mean, Mad Men, like it's like I respect Mad Men because it's like one of the few shows that isn't about criminals or cops or whatever.
Right.
And Breaking Bad is about criminals, but it bridges it's part Mad Men, part
I think we're considering
the best cop show is The Shield, I guess.
We should note. I think we're considering this is like the post DVR DVD era. Obviously, there's stuff like Hill Street Blues.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I thought about that, and like I'm still just sort of like objectively like. It's just better now. Like there's the technology has allowed.
Yeah, I think it's.
I mean, like
you wouldn't say like it's weird because it's art. So obviously I don't want to. But like you wouldn't say like the iPhone 5s that have come out and it's going to be like objectively better than the iPhone 4 because it's just like the technology. Which sounds weird, but like. We're just capable of watching way more dense content.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and that's why I said post DVR because I think DVR and DVDs and streaming is the thing that enabled us.
Sorry, I maybe just recontextualized what you said.
No, I think, but I think it's a good point, and I think those technologies are what allowed us. I was going to say us to make those shows. We haven't made those shows. Allowed us to live in the age where those types of shows could be made. And
absolutely. Well, and I mean, but to me, the thing that I think may sort of ultimately set it apart in a really interesting way, and to a certain extent, this is also true of Mad Men, is that shows like Sopranos and Deadwood and certainly The Wire were breaking this interesting new ground where a lot of I think the appeal of them was this idea of we're breaking through the tyranny of the episode here. Like we're going to tell these storylines, especially in The Wire's case. I mean. An individual episode, it's hard to even really remember. You think of that show as sort of these five sort of like
even more so than these other shows that we've decided are tier
Breaking Bad
one.
Is probably almost. It seems like almost in a way. embracing the episode a little
Exactly.
more.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is what I like about it. I mean, and Vince Gilligan, he's a guy who worked on the X-Files, which I think is a show that, if we're talking about the pre-DVR era, is really high up there as far as, what are the great TV shows. And yeah,
It's
somehow
dabbling in mythology.
dabbling in mythology, and somehow, like, with Breaking Bad, it feels like they've figured it out finally, where it's like each episode kind of feels like its own interesting short
Sure, yeah,
film,
yeah.
but at the same time, I mean, the fourth season was just one ongoing chess match between Gus Fring and Walt. So I think it's up there, man. Of course, the one twist is that if it has, there's always the danger of if it has a bad, back half of this season, are we all going to be like going back and saying like, oh, I could tell that when they killed Mike was really when the show started to go downhill.
I think they're more primed than any other show that I can think of to really deliver on that final season. They've known it's coming. They've reached the natural endpoint in the story. It never really spun its wheels. Like, I think all indications are that they're gonna nail it.
I'm just going to call out one thing here because I do want to keep my streak up of guessing things that happen.
Yeah.
I think that either, like, probably not in this next episode, but I think next season, I think Walt and Lydia are going to have some kind of a romantic thing.
Oh, that's good.
Like,
I
and
like
like
it.
it sounds so simplistic for the show, but something about like when they interacted, I was just like, like Walt's a guy who is not really. He's been sort of almost asexual for the last couple seasons
well,
of the show.
Actually, though in the first episode, he's like,
Well, because like in the first episode,
But that was like that was a little
bit.
bit like you could make the argument. I think that wasn't about sex really. It was like a power thing.
yeah, totally, yeah.
And that's I don't know, just like their one sort of scene together in that episode where in the train robbery episode, I was just like, yo, like if they wanted to go here, if they wanted to actually like give Walt some sort of like reason to live besides his work, like so
Well,
that's my ridiculous
He's definitely like
plan
maybe
for next season.
Yeah, and they seem to share sort of similarity in terms of like, the way they're both definitely like uptight people.
She
who-
also wanted to kill all those people. She was like ready to cross that line
And
to
I
save
love
herself.
that. I love that he was totally on board with that. Like, yeah, like maybe this girl knows what she's talking
I
about.
could see them
maybe
cutting back to that.
Todd, Walt, Lydia is like the new trifecta.
I could see them cutting back to that flash forward where he's at the diner and like it's this moment we haven't seen before and like Lydia walks out of the bathroom and joins him and like she's there too. I could see something like that happening. Breaking Bad, you guys. Breaking
Bad.
fucking bad. Thanks so much for talking about it. Pat, what are you on Twitter? At Pat, we're plugging things now.
Oh,
I'm not just changing topics.
Oh my God, I'm awesome. I think I'm.
We'll give
Pat, speaking of Twitter, what do you?
I think it's Patrick_Castles.
catchy.
Do people know people will know what that means, right?
I think so. They'll figure it out.
Point in history.
I'm at Darren Franich.
I pointed at Darren. He didn't just say that. He didn't just say that and provoke.
I'm
By the
at
way,
Darren Franich.
I pointed
personally.
at him, but forgot I was on
And
a
then,
podcast.
I mean, if it's cool, if I can plug, me and Jeff Jensen, my colleague, host our own podcast called Entertainment Geekly. Which is a corporate mandated play on words, where we just talk about like geeky stuff, like superhero movies, comic books.
I don't know if
things like
anyone that
that.
listens to the show is going to be interested in that. And you're writing the Breaking Bad weekly recaps.
I was filling in. I'm not going to be writing this finale, fortunately.
my God.
Which means that I get to just enjoy it. Probably
when you're writing the
reeling.
recap, do you enjoy it less because you're like have to be taking notes?
I mean, this is a show where you do have to take a lot of notes, especially on a show like this where everything is quotable. But I will say that it's a recap where you kind of just there's no bottom of things to write about.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like when I was writing about the episode a couple weeks ago, the one that started off with them like boiling the kid, I spent like 400 words just talking about that, and I was like, oh, there's 50 more scenes in this episode.
Yeah,
that I
that's
have
like
to get to.
before the theme song. But that's just how good the show is. And of course, Breaking Bad is on AMC Sunday nights. I say on that like when I see a Breaking Bad ad, when I see a Breaking Bad billboard, I'm like, I cannot believe they got to fucking advertise this show. If they should just put it out there and let me do the work for them. Guys, thank you so much for coming and talking about it.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for having me, man.
Totally.
Woo! That is it for this week's Jeff Rubin Show. I posted this one a little bit early. Would have known about it if you follow me on Twitter, where I am at Jeff Rubin Show, on my blog at jeffrubin.com, at youtube.com/jeffrubin, or on my Facebook fan page. As it is, you had to wait for Tuesday, like some kind of asshole. I am off next week. First Tuesday of the month equals no new Jeff Rubin Show, but I will be back the Tuesday after that. That will be September 11th. Oh boy. But that's when I'm back. And it's going to be a great episode. And I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to actually play you a preview of that episode to keep you warm through that cold September 4th. The episode is going to be my interview with Ben Blumenfeld. Ben is a designer at Facebook, or he was a designer at Facebook from 2007 until very, very recently, and we talk about what it's like to work at Facebook and develop this thing that literally everybody uses. It's a really good episode. Here's a clip.
I mean, it's so engrossing being inside. It's just like you're building this thing that everyone uses. So it's not like you go home and you put it out of your mind, you know? It's always on your mind. You go through an airport and everyone's using it. You go home and you use it to talk to friends. It's this all-encompassing thing. It's all you think about all the time, 24/7.
Jeff Rubin Show, back September 11th. Easy to remember, I guess. I will see you there. Thanks for listening. Bye.